All right, there we go. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you, Andre.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, boy, it's been a little bit. How have you been? What you been up to? How you holding up?
Doing well. Last week I went and I had a speech and it was supposed to end at a certain time. I gave a speech and it just went crazy
Oh,
and I
yeah.
couldn't actually leave. They were like, no, you can't leave.
No worries. Yeah, I know. Events, speeches, they always got to be a little open to how those evolve.
And I was supposed to get on stage, get off stage, and you're done. But they're like, oh no, you have to stay. You made us cry. You can't leave.
Yeah, well, it's good. You got to take care of the people you talk to. They want to see you.
So how have you been?
I have been holding up pretty well. California is in a bit of a disaster situation right now with fires and smoke and heat waves and air quality on top of everything else that's been going on. There's rolling power blackouts and it's,
Sounds like a normal LA day.
yeah, it's it's kind of what we're getting used to. It seems very par for the course for 2020. Everybody's just sort of, you know, doing the best we can, I guess. And fortunately, we were not very directly affected. The fire is only a couple miles away from us, but the winds were in our favor today, and so we didn't get
You didn't
we
get
weren't
smoked
drowned
out.
in smoke. Yeah, yeah. So the kids could go out inside and play, and that was better, much better than yesterday at least. And yeah, otherwise things are just moving along, plenty busy, lots of things going on, work at Stanford. And keeping up with racial justice topics. I finished 13th finally today. I've been sort of watching it in bits and pieces over time, and it's a really powerful compilation. Just really puts together so many important things that everybody I think should be familiar with from especially recent history and prison and jailing and mass incarceration. Um, I don't know, when you saw that, like, what were the pieces? What parts did you think were most important for people to remember or take away, or what actions come out of that? I,
I
I
think
felt like at the end it didn't really leave with a lot of like, here's what to do next recommendation types of things.
at the time when they made it, it wasn't in the middle of a crisis. It
Yeah,
was just something that was going on in the story that needed to be told.
yeah.
I saw it, I think it was 4 years ago. I think
Uh-huh.
it was like at least 4 years ago, because it
Mm.
was before I moved to Atlanta. And that's been about, I've been here for 2, I was in Atlanta for 3. So it was about 4, maybe 5 years ago. I saw it when it first came out. And the thing that got me that I think people need to recognize and remember is it's true.
Yeah.
Aside from like the leaning left or the leaning right, it's a good accounting of what happened.
Yeah.
So you had people, my folks, enslaved. Then we come out of slavery and we transition from slavery to indentured servitude based on the 13th Amendment clause of incarceration or
Hmm.
criminalization. It wasn't initially incarceration, even though it was. They didn't have the prisons, they had farms. So back in when it first transitioned, it wasn't about a building like a prison penitentiary we know today. They had work farms slash plantations that were the same as before. So there was a plan to keep people working, and there was a plan to keep people, you know what I'm saying, in that
Hmm.
working for free mode, and it just devastated communities. So you go back to the times when people were just being arrested just because. There was no civil rights. There were no lawyers. There were no you couldn't read. You're talking
Yeah.
about a whole group of people who didn't know how to read, a whole group of people who had no legal standing, and you just took them. You made the new law, the new policy, 13th Amendment. Then you just started victimizing people based on a loophole. So I don't know if that was a backdoor deal the North made with the South. Like,
Hmm.
okay, we're gonna free them, but we'll let you re-incarcerate them, or we'll let you
Hmm.
re-enslave them under this
Hmm.
clause.
Yeah.
Because anybody who reads that clause is clear that you can re-enslave people,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's exactly what they did, and they've been doing. Now it moved from what it was, slave camps, to now you don't actually need labor, you just need bodies. So they went from actual laborers to just batteries. They now power a system
Hmm.
versus they build a nation.
Mm-hmm.
Post-slavery, it was build a nation, physical labor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a place to store people that we don't want in our society, and the storing of them generates money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the corporations that run and own the prisons across the
No,
country.
it generates money for society at whole, because the state, we have private prisons. That's a byproduct of the state being overwhelmed. But the state makes money. I say right now, and this is what I understood when I was incarcerated,
Hmm.
you get to hire all your unhirables. So you have a whole class of people who you don't need a college degree. You don't any fantastic skill sets. You don't have to pass any aptitude tests, a GED, high school diploma, and no record, and we'll give you a full-time state job
Mm-hmm.
or a full-time county job.
Mm-hmm.
To be a jailer, I'm not knocking it, but it employed a lot of people. You put one of these prisons in a rural community, you just employed 500 people at really good wages with pensions and health care.
Mm-hmm.
That's something they didn't have in these communities. So prisons became job opportunities for people who couldn't get employed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I see. That's interesting. And of course, the labor also hasn't gone away as far as
They've redistributed.
Yeah,
So
and in the sort of, not, I don't know, forced or not forced, but basically the servitude of the incarcerated population. That was something that was in the documentary too, as far as the corporations that use prison labor, for double-digit cents per day is what they pay for that labor.
Yeah. When I was in the federal prison system, they had a thing called Unicor. They talked about it in the documentary, where you go build cables and you're building like high-tech stuff, and they're paying like $1 a day. Some places were per hour, like 80 cents an hour. And it was just like, and for somebody in the street, $30, $40, $50 an hour with pension and health care and days off and lunch hours and sick call, sick leave. Prisoner, nothing. So nothing. So you still get free labor in a lot of places and spaces. And it's called, we're helping them get better. If you want to help them get better, how about we help them not go in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Stop help. If you want to help me not go in.
Yeah.
Help my son not go in. Don't say, I'm going to help your son get to jail and then help him get better. No, I mean, that's backwards. So right now, a large majority, the federal budget is being ravished by prisons. So if I'm a state or if I'm a county or whoever I am, if I have a certain amount of people incarcerated, it comes out of the budget. If it favors you or not, depending on how you want to look at it, that's a lot of money. $50 billion to govern prisons. That's a lot of money. And I would say 80% or better is going to staffing.
Right.
Every prison I've been in, 80% of the budget goes to staffing. So employing the people to manage the prison is the majority of the money.
I see. Yeah. And there've been, obviously in the last few months, even more so, but, more and more calls to, de-incarcerate and to reduce the prison population and to, to shut down prisons. I think there's a lot of forces that push against that, but
I'll be the first to say, I don't believe, as much as I spent 14 years in prison. I've been working in prison services or assistance for 20 plus years. Simply shutting down the prisons at one level isn't realistic and isn't going to happen. I'm saying, and I don't see that. So I'm not even going to get on the bandwagon, close the prisons, abolitionists. No, I'm not saying no, don't do it. I don't see it happening. I don't believe you're going to shut down a prison system with 2.2 million people tomorrow. And you're going to let all these people out and they're going to do what? I'm saying, so they need to be let out, a lot of them. I'm looking at the people who are in jail for selling marijuana. They have hundreds, if not thousands, of people in jail, a lot of blacks, who've been incarcerated for selling marijuana. All of a sudden, the government has found a way to tax it. And on the same corner Johnny used to stand on, there's now a dispensary run by Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith's not going to jail, but Johnny's still in jail doing 20 years. So let's catch up and say everybody with a marijuana charge needs to go home. I'm not everybody. Everybody with a marijuana charge needs to, if you're only in jail for using or distributing or possessing marijuana, you need to be released because it is now legal in America to dispense marijuana. Not in all instances, but enough of them that we can know something. Yeah. Marijuana people go home. The heroin and the cocaines and the methamphetamines is a different story. We can simply start with what we've legalized and say, we're going to let these people out to start. Let's systematically look at the system and say, what makes sense? Do you let everybody with a murder case go home? Do you let everybody with a rape case go home? But I definitely, starting out, anybody with strictly a marijuana case should be released in the next 48 hours. I would have no problem with that. Now, they need some assistance, but they definitely should get assistance on this side of the wall.
Yeah. And what we're paying to keep them in prison could probably fund a pretty robust assistance program for when they get out.
Right. It's not only the assistance program. That's one part. You're keeping people in jail for what's now legal. Now, granted, when they did it, it was a violation of the law and you send them to jail, but the law has since been reversed. And the law has been changed and amended to the point where people can actually benefit and profit all across this country on selling and producing marijuana. So let's just say we can probably knock like a couple 100,000 people out of prison, because if that's their only charge, let's dismiss. If you had a distribution charge and a gun, do your gun time. If you had a distribution charge and something else, do the other time. But simply all marijuana charges by themselves should be dismissed. And make arrangements to say, okay, let's transition these people out. I'm not saying like, hey, we throw them a parade. We don't owe anything, because at the time they did that crime, it was illegal, but it's no longer illegal. So let's make the adjustment.
Yeah.
I just have a problem with a 90% white marijuana business running in America when it was 90% black people who went to jail for it. So come on, let's if you want to talk about equal justice, you find a way to tax it and take the business. And there's been policies put out you can't be black with a criminal record and sell. If I sold marijuana for 20 years, I can't sell it now. But you can. It can be a business for you, but it can't be a business for me. So, which leaves me still in the illegal end of business.
Right.
So why not allow the people the access to do the business now that it's legal, instead of putting in all these protocols to prohibit people from doing it? But that's another story.
Right.
That's what you call white privilege, where we're going to take this business that you've been making millions of dollars on, and we're going to run it ourselves and leave you in jail in the process.
Yeah, just completely swoop in and sort of usurp that entire business and industry and legalize.
We appreciate you getting the thing started. We appreciate you kicking it off. We'll take it from here.
Yeah. On the prevention side of things, I didn't know if there's been any updates for the last couple of weeks on any of the work you were doing with corporations and giving and things like that. Anything on the prevention side and
on the corporation front. I actually spent all day today and yesterday filming and training on social justice and impact for companies, mainly white companies, and that should be done hopefully. I moved my calendar. It's on the floor. It should be done by the end of the month. So I'm looking at September 1, releasing the training to companies on understanding the Black experience, social impact, Black Lives Matter versus Black equality. And I'm giving it away. So if you are a company and you just want it, I'm not charging. I'm giving it away. Because everybody's out here trying to, how can I make money? How can I leverage this? No, this isn't about leverage. This is about turning the tide. So I'm going to give this training that I've created to every white company that wants it, needs it, or thinks about it.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds really good. I'm glad you're doing that.
I've been on a lot of calls, and people are talking about the uptick in crime or the uptick in this. And I was on a call 2 weeks ago with the mayor of New Jersey, mayor of Newark, New Jersey. And he had like 12 people on the call from around the country who do social justice and violence work. And they were saying, hey, this guy from Newark is the greatest mayor in the country. He's the most progressive. He's crushing it. I'm like, cool. So I told him, I said, Mr. Mayor, if you set up the foundation and the platform, I will give you the 20 years of work that I've produced for free. And no charge, no story, no licensing, no back end. I will give it to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're saying you're the guy and you're going to lead the charge for the next wave. And I'm challenging my brothers and sisters who are out here. Let's find some depositories of people who can facilitate and manage this stuff and give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we look at a system that's broken, but we're trying to monetize a system that's broken. Now, if there's some monetization post or down the road, fine.
Mm-hmm.
But don't withhold the information that people need to stay alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's it's tough decisions for some people who need income and things like that. But I've seen a lot of tremendous content online that's free with the option to donate to support. And they reach hundreds of thousands of people, and if even 5% of those can give a buck or two, then that's
Right.
it's a good amount of income.
But if the donation's there, fine. If the thing I'm paying for creating, I'm saying in my life, in my space, this is a time to bring about a historic change. I have a friend, Elko, who call it epic.
Yeah.
And this is an epic time. And I'm not trying to come in with how can I tag on a back-end donation? I don't care about back-end donations. I want my son, my grandson who's not born, whoever else that I'm just going to come across to be in a better space. And I need to find another way to monetize something else. I do speeches, I do cartwheels, I'll sell oranges, but I'm not going to monopolize the business of saving lives.
Mm-hmm.
Not this.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective, hearing that. And I was wondering, as far as recent news, if you've been following the Democratic convention or anything like that, or the vice president nomination. And I'm curious, we haven't gotten that much into politics in our discussions, but I'm
from Boston. We can definitely talk. I'm from Boston. We can talk politics or sports.
Yeah.
It's part of being from the city. We can talk race, politics, and sports. We do all three in Boston, or seafood.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have a really interesting and potentially crazy and nerve-wracking few months ahead of us, and so I'm wondering how you're thinking about it and how you're thinking about keeping our sanity, taking effective action. Just what your take is on the upcoming election.
The election, somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, and the people always lose. The people on the ground always lose. I mean, it's like where the Generals playing the Harlem Globetrotters. The people on the ground always lose. In the last, we had Obama, we had Bush, we had Clinton, we had Bush, we had Reagan, we had Carter. We'll go back to the last 7 presidents. I'm not even going to mess with Nixon. I'm not going to let him go. I'm saying we're just going to do the last 7. I'm saying, and that's from 1980 to now, to 2020. That's a long time. That's a long time. The schools have not gotten better under any of them. Not one bit. The college system, as far as pay for education, has not gotten better for anybody. That's rich white kids, poor white kids, everybody across the board. Crime and safety has not gotten better across the board. I'm saying criminal justice, fairness, equality, prison systems have not gotten better across the board. Infant mortality in inner cities has not gotten better across the board. So you want to talk to me about Obamacare? You want to talk to me about some how we call it, the environment getting, I'm saying, listen, on the ground, in every urban setting in America, they're struggling. In the woods or in the rural sections of this country, they're struggling. So for the last 20, 40 years, of all the presidents, both Democratic and Republican, for all the Senate and the houses, for all the mayors and Democratic governors and Republican governors in this country, on the ground, the people are losing. Because right now, politics isn't about the people, it's about being able to manage the money. That's what politics is about. We heard when Bush was in, Bush and Cheney, their company making billions of dollars with the war. And the next guy, everybody goes in poor, comes out rich as a politician. But the people go to the polls poor and they come out poor. So I'm not thrilled with anybody. I'm not offended by anybody. I understand it's a business. Politics is a business now. And it's a business of making money for the people in your constituent group. That's it. So I'm not for or against either side. Best of luck to all of them. But at the end of the day, you tell me in the last 40 years, which president has improved public school education? Which president has helped us relieve the debts for all these kids going to college, spending $200,000-$300,000 to get educated that can't get a job?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're better off becoming a politician and just doing your thing there. How many politicians have gone to jail in the last 40 years?
Yeah, not many, like this many.
But how many have been kicked out of office for doing illicit and illegal things?
Almost none. Yeah.
So there's too much money. Trillions of dollars are in play. And when trillions of dollars are in play, people generally think about themselves or their constituents. There are a handful of people that I know that are honest people, and they're about the people. There was a guy who was in Missouri. He ran for governor. He was a Republican, white guy from the suburbs, and he grew up and he built his life. And I helped him with his campaign. They're like, Dre, how are you helping this Republican white guy with his campaign? Because I know him and he's a solid person. And he ran because he cared about people, and his objective wasn't to fleece the system. So many people, the one thing you can say about Donald is he didn't come to steal money. He had his money when he showed up. Most politicians don't show up with money. I'm not saying he's better or worse than the rest, but he didn't come for the sole purpose of getting rich. He was rich before he showed up. But a lot of politicians, it's the new hustle. And I'll say the same thing. A lot of people open churches because it's a hustle. A lot of people do a lot of things. It's not for the people. When I see pastors driving around in Bentleys and Ferraris and Lamborghinis and they got $5 million house, that's not the church that I read about in our Bible. But that's the church in 2020. If you're a pastor of a church, you should have a $10 million house, a fleet of cars, and everything else. So how do you have 5 cars worth $1 million and there's people starving? Tell me how that works. Or your Jesus only helps you work with your people. So, I mean, is it the people of the world or is it the people that come to your building?
Pretty selective reading. Yeah.
I read the Bible a few times and it just doesn't seem to line up with the church today as far as helping people.
A lot of churches. Yeah.
And this is I say this as a telltale sign. Andre, how can you tell if it's a good church or a bad church? If the entire staff, or no, not the entire staff, if the family member, if whoever the pastor or bishop or whoever's in charge, if his whole family's on staff, it's a family business. I tell you what, I love my son. He's not working for me. I love my son. He's not working for me.
And why? What about your case? Why would you not do that?
It's not what he does. I mean, it's me and my son. He doesn't want to listen to dad. He wants his own space. He wants his own, all that type of stuff. I mean, he doesn't want to be up on the dad all day. See me at dinner, see me on the weekend. He's not trying to work for me. But if he can't get a job anyplace else because he's just not that smart, of course, come in the family business. I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars and I give you a title. You just hang around the church. If you look at your church and you look at the staffing, and the pastor or the lead person, his entire family is on staff. The wife, the daughter, the son, the son-in-law, the brother-in-law, the cousin, the nephew, the family business. I guarantee if you go to Exxon, the CEO, his whole family doesn't work in his office. You go to Panera, the whole family doesn't work in the office. Every major CEO company that's run by a CEO, he does not have his whole family working for him. A church, yes, sir. You can hire your whole family. No questions asked.
Yeah.
And whatever you want.
I hadn't thought about that. I haven't really looked into staffing at churches that closely, but that's an interesting.
You're at Stanford. Who's the president of Stanford?
Yeah, Mark Tessier Levine.
And I guarantee you, none of his family are on his staff.
No, yeah. The people at the university picked him, and they didn't pick his whole family along.
But why doesn't he hire his family to come work for him? Because it's not his business.
Yeah.
But if it's a church and you have the ability to hire anybody you want, regardless of who's the best candidate, you do it. You hire your family if they're the best candidate or not. So I'm not against church. I'm not against mega churches. This is for small churches too. Now, if you and the wife co-pastoring, then yeah, she should be on staff. But all your kids shouldn't. All your in-laws shouldn't. All your cousins shouldn't. No. But that's the first thing I look at when I go to a church is give me the staff list. And if I start seeing everybody's name married the lead guy, I'm out the door. Because I'm not funding your family. I'm not funding your family business.
So I wanted to ask about your work in the prisons lately. I was wondering if it has changed at all in the last few months, as far as preparing them for potential release or changing any of the curriculum or things that you teach. Has that shifted at all, given the sort of recent, awakening of this movement more broadly in the country?
Right now, the movement for prisoners has been intact since the 50s. So the prisoners have always seen themselves in some form of movement. Minus George Floyd, minus Trayvon, minus Rodney King. Prisoners have always seen themselves as prisoners of war, or they've been oppressed. They're always going to have that mindset because they're physically locked in. So you can take away all social justice issues and just look at prisons alone, and they will always have the mindset of it's us against them because we're being oppressed / held against our will, justly or unjustly. That's just the mindset of somebody incarcerated. They're going to fight against the person holding the keys. There will always be that, let's fight against the system. Right now, the new social justice movement with the Black Lives Matter, Black equality, white folks and Black folks standing together is not really penetrating the prison system, mainly because there are no visits being allowed in most, if not all states, because of COVID. The staff is on an ultra thin status because of COVID. So nobody's going in, nobody's going out unless they're essential employees. Most people are in lockdown scenarios because they're trying to stop COVID from spreading around the prison. So they're trying to keep people isolated and separated. Most programs in most states have been suspended because program staff are not essential employees. So right now, prison's almost at a standstill. It's like right now, if you're in prison, you're trying not to get sick because you don't fully understand. You don't have the best access to medical care. You don't have any control over who's walking through the front door and where was that guard at last week or last night. And so you haven't seen your family in 5 months. So it gets really, really challenging. And all prison phone calls cost money to call home. Most of the companies that host the phones are giving free calls for the guys to call home, which is great. But how many free calls do you get versus how many do you know? Seeing your mother is not like talking to her. Seeing your kids is different than talking to them on the phone. So you're having the breakdown or the separation of the families during the COVID crisis. So right now, nobody's really thinking about programming or curriculums or what comes next. It's how do I stay safe? How do I stay in touch with my family? And are they safe? That is like the biggest concern throughout Department of Corrections and FBOPs across the country, I would think. At least in South Carolina where I work, health is number one, because if you got a housing unit with 200 guys in it and 2 guys get sick, it'll swing through that whole block in about a week. Now you got 2 guys who turn into 200 because everybody's next to each other. They share the showers, they share bathrooms, they share food trays, they share this, they share that. And you really can't avoid people. There's no social distancing in prison. Let's start with that.
Right.
You got a cellmate, there's no social distancing. And then it's just super hard to maintain that level of cleanliness, diligence, social distancing. Prisons almost, if you live in they have open bay dorms where you have a giant room with maybe 200 beds in it. There's no social distancing. It's just it's not feasible. So you just have to hope that it doesn't get into that dorm because it'll swing right through there in a heartbeat.
I can see that that's definitely the focus, sort of not the sort of broader outside U.S. movement of racial
if you're the director or commissioner of a prison system, your primary focus should not be programming. It should be health and safety from that standpoint. I mean, because you have thousands of people in your jurisdiction under your care, and as much as you want to get this guy a GED, you don't want to get half your prison system sick trying to get him a GED. Some things override basic. Now, in a normal setting, GED should be happening. In a normal setting, programming should be happening. Right now, we have a virus that's sweeping through the country as it swept through the world that we don't fully understand.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a one time I say, you know something? Focus on medical.
Yeah. And, I want to ask you one thing that just occurred to me on that front. With the behavior design lab at Stanford, we're looking into motivators and demotivators around vaccine for COVID. And it's interesting, the Black population, I think, because of historic reasons where they've been subject to really terrible treatment at the hands of research and medical institutions, are much more resistant about getting that vaccination.
You ain't vaccinating me.
Yeah, than other populations.
I ain't going for it. Test the white people first. I ain't going for it. Until you show me 1,000, I'm not taking it regardless. I just don't listen. I'm good. I'm not even going to do it historical, all the wonderful testing that's been done on Black folks over the decades. I was kind of offended when they opened the barbershops first.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, let's open the barbershops and the nail salons. Let's see how it works out. Now, I'm not really in favor of being the first person up for a vaccine.
Right.
I don't even take flu shots.
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously, like, you don't have to do that, but I'm wondering about the prison population and, yeah, how you see that working? Like, should they be a population that's prioritized to protect? Like, should they be near the beginning of the queue of priority vulnerable populations, or?
No, stop that. You're giving people ideas. Let's go test the vaccine on the prisoners. No, that's a bad.
No, I'm not talking about testing. I'm talking about after it's approved and anybody can get it. Everybody's going to want it. There's going to be a shortage. And so who should get it first? I mean,
who should get it first are the elderly.
Mm-hmm.
The second should be the young.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And then third, elderly and young if you're elderly in prison, you should get it. And then the willing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be willing to take it. Andre is not willing to take the vaccine.
Yeah. I'm not pushing it on you, Andre. You don't have to take it.
Elderly first.
Yeah.
Elderly first, 6 second, kids second or third, however you want to do that. But I would not put prison populations, unless there's a prison population that's sick and infected. So when I say the sick, so if you have a dorm or a prison full of people who are infected with COVID, then bring it, offer them the vaccine.
Well, it might be too late at that point. Once they have it, the vaccine's not going to cure them of what they already have.
Oh, this is for stopping people from getting it.
Yeah, this is a prevention measure. Yeah. So anyway, that was just something I've been thinking about too, about
that's touchy. That's touchy.
We found a touchy topic. That's good.
Let's talk about baseball. Here. How about them Red Sox?
Go back to politics and sports.
Donald Trump, like I was saying. No. I'm not big on being first in line for the vaccine.
Yeah,
I have a problem. I cringe when I give my son his shots as a baby. So,
I know. Yeah, it's hard to do it with a baby, but it's also it's helpful in a lot of ways too. But
you have to be real trusting. Again, you need me to trust a system
mm-hmm.
and the vaccines that they created for me and my child when the system is doing me wrong and been doing me harsh for 400 years.
Yeah.
So it's not just medicine. You want me to trust a group of people that I historically at one level have distrusted and have proven at one level, not collectively, but at least in large majorities, have ill feelings towards me.
Yeah.
So it's tough to say because there are no blacks who own hospitals. There are no blacks who own labs. So everything's trusted from the other side of the tracks. And you have to be trusting of the people who are sending you your medicines.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go into CVS or the Walgreens, that ball of Tylenol could go to a white person, go to me. So it's different. I can get that. But when you start making medicine specifically for me, or they're going to be shipped out to me, that's different.
Yeah. I mean, the COVID vaccine, I would be very surprised if they made race-specific versions. I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same vaccine.
That's what you, no. You think so. That's it.
Well,
You're a white guy. You're a white guy.
For any of the other vaccines, so it would be surprising.
Listen,
if
you're a white guy
for this vaccine.
Oh, that's what you believe.
All right, I'm listening, but you got to tell me why.
I just don't trust. I'm like, are they going to send us to like the beta test first?
All All right, well, don't worry. I'll get it, and everybody else will get it, and then you
No,
can get it
no.
if
See,
you
it's
want
not
to.
just that you get it and I get it. I want the same one that went to your house. Give me the one that they shipped to you, and I give you the one that they shipped to me, and then we'll go from there. I'm serious. Give me the one that had the wrong zip code. Don't give me one.
All right. Well, we could talk about that one. All sorts of future conversations. Love as much as you want. But no, anything else you want to throw out there before we close out for today?
No, I mean, I had a conversation. Well, it was on August 9th. I did a Zoom call with the Michael Brown family. They had the annual meeting or the annual town hall. They had to do it virtually. And the message was, we need to come together. We need to get solutions. And the Brown family and the other families who were on the call, they're looking to have conversations. They're looking to actually be part of something and want to be in the mix because they feel, and I agree, that the movement, which is birthed out of the death of their family members, has been taken by people who have no connection to them, and they're running off with these flags and these banners and these causes, and none of the information or resources or credit is coming back to the families. So Black Lives Matter, Trayvon Martin, is Michael Brown Jr., is even, we go all down to all the names.
Yeah.
99.9% of people who are leading this movement aren't connected back to the families. So we need to find a way that if you're going to scream Michael Brown, hands up, don't shoot, if you're going to scream all these other things, where's your commitment to the families? Was the question that was asked. And it's a legitimate question. And I'd love to get Michael on here with us one week, and he can tell you how he feels as a dad, because at the end of the day, his son is still gone. However you feel about it, his son is still gone. And there are people running around the world screaming Michael Brown Jr., Ferguson, Black Lives Matter, but nobody's reaching out to Michael Sr. to see how he's doing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Obviously, it's a lot to ask the families to also be in charge of leading movements and providing all this information, but at the same time, they should certainly be some of the most authoritative voices in the movement. It should respect what they want done with the names of their children.
Right. So how about we do this? We're going to create a platform where those voices can be heard.
Yeah.
Sounds like a winner.
Yeah. All right, Andre.
All right.
Good talking with you, man. And I'll catch you soon.
I'll talk to you next week.
All right. Bye-bye.